Hello team, welcome back to V Project UK. In this Pro Series video, we're going to take a look at damp sanding and where that would fit in the paint correction steps. So, without wasting too much time, let's start the video. So a lot of people see damp sanding as quite an aggressive method in removing defects from your paint. So on this panel you can see that we've got some quite heavy and deep ingrained water etching there, and there's also some quite deep scratches along the bottom here. Now basically, if you were to compound these, you would probably need to compound these heavier defects quite a number of times before they would actually be removed, and that is actually quite stressful on the clear coat. Sometimes it's actually less stressful to actually sand really heavy defects like this water etching or these deep scratches out, because the chances are you'll get them out much quicker with sanding than you will with constantly compounding them. So it's actually sometimes damp sanding fits in as a less aggressive method than compounding. It fits somewhere between polishing and compounding. So that is what we're going to discuss and show in today's video. What we're going to be using in today's video is the XCut discs from Rupes. They are basically sanding discs that are variable in different sizes. This is the 5-inch and the 3-inch, and they've actually got some sort of material, some sort of substrate on them. It's not actually fine particles of sand, it's some sort of material which acts like sanding paper. However, it's really uniform and gives you fantastic results. So here I've got one 1500 grit, and then you've also got one 3000 grit. However, what you need to do when you're doing any sort of correction on your paint is ideally go for the least aggressive method. Something like this, which is really deep water etching, will probably need something like the 1500 grit. Whereas these scratches here, you'll probably get away with something like the 3000 grit. So you need to know roughly what sort of grade of sandpaper you'll need for any job you might be doing. And normally when you're doing paint correction, you always want to try and go for the least aggressive method possible. Another top tip for you: not all sanding pads are created equal. There's two main types of sanding pad. You've got blended and you've also got flatting. So what is the difference? With a blended pad, which is what the Rupes XCut discs are, which is why we like using them, most paint will have orange peel. It's not going to be completely flat. What you'll see is like little rivets, like the skin of an orange, which is why it's called orange peel, on the surface of the paint. If you use something like a blended pad, what this will do is get rid of the defect, but it won't remove the orange peel. So when you've finished, that section that you've worked, whether it be this section or this section, will still blend in with the rest of the panel. If you use a flatting pad, such as the Car Pro Denim or the Car Pro Velvet pads, they're actually orange peel removal or flatting pads. So what will happen is that it will remove the defect, but it will also remove the orange peel. So when you finish with whatever section you're working, it will look different to the rest of the paint because you'll get much different reflections, because that will be flat, this will all have orange peel, and that will be flat, and it will look completely different and it won't blend. And what you'll be tempted to then do, or you'll need to do, is actually flat the rest of the panel. The danger with that is that once you flat the rest of the panel, you'll want to flat the rest of the car, because then your panel that you've worked on won't match the rest of the car. So it's really important you know what type of sanding pad you're getting, whether it's going to be a blended or a flatting. These two are both blended, they're both the same pad, just different size and different grade. However, like I say, something like the Car Pro are actually orange peel removal flatting pads. So one more thing to bear in mind before you start damp sanding. So as you can see, we're referring to this as damp sanding, not wet sanding. Typically, wet sanding is when you have an even, steady flow of water, because you're using quite a heavy grade of sandpaper and you need that water to act as lubrication. However, when it comes to damp sanding, which is what we do here at V Project UK, we generally don't go below 1500 grit, which is generally as aggressive as we usually need to go. You can go as low as 1000 grit, but usually for us 1500 grit is enough upwards. You will use water, but it's just like a few mists of water, which is why this is more referred to as damp sanding than wet sanding. So just one more thing to bear in mind. So these pads basically have a sponge interface on them, as you can see. So you've got the actual material on the surface, you've got the sponge in the middle, and then you've also got the Velcro backing pad on the back. And what that does is that gives you a little bit of play, so when you're going around contours and curves on your vehicle, this is slightly forgiving. And the 5-inch versions are exactly the same. You've got the substrate with the sponge in the middle, and that gives you a bit of play. However, what we also do is use a backing plate for the machine polisher, and this is an extra interface which gives you a much thicker foam interface, so that when you actually go around curves of the vehicle, you get much more contouring of the vehicle and much more even finish. And when we've mounted this on the machine polisher, you'll see what we mean, that it gives you that extra layer of forgiveness when you're actually going around your vehicle. Because let's face it, how many vehicles are totally level? They're not, and this just gives you the extra contact from the sanding pad on your vehicle. So this is the 5-inch from ShineMate, then you've also got the 3-inch from ShineMate as well. So I'm just going to use the light source. I'm going to use the Sealey LED 360 just to show you the defects. So as you can see, we've got some really deep water etching there, which I'm going to use a 1500 grit on, and we'll see how much of that we can remove. I'm not sure how deep that's gone, but it does look like it's gone fairly deep, so we'll see what results we get. And then we've also got the scratches here, as you can see. So we're going to use a 1500 grit on them again. So I'm just going to prepare the panel. This has already been prepped and decontaminated and ready to go. I'm going to mask off the areas. When it comes to this sanding, ideally you just want to concentrate on the areas that you've got the heavy defects. So I'm going to measure off this area, or sort of tape off this area. I'm also going to take some paint measurements to see how much clear coat we have, and also how much clear coat we have here. And this panel here is soft lacquer and it's dark, which means it's literally the hardest type of paint you can have to try and finish down to a perfect finish. And we're going to see just how far we get. So I'm just going to mask everything off, we'll take some measurements, and then we'll get going. So we've got everything taped off. We've got the deep water etching taped off here and the deep scratches taped off here. And what I'm going to do as usual is take measurements to see how much clear coat we start with and how much we're removing throughout the whole process. We'll take one measurement in the middle there, and in the deep scratches we'll take 3 measurements, and we'll see how much clear coat we're removing. And I'll try and be as exact as possible in taking the measurement from exactly the same spot each time. So in this one, let's have a look. So we started off with 136 microns on this side, and then this side we'll take 3 measurements. Starting on this one, we'll go to 8 centimeters again. So we've got 138 down here, in the middle. Now bear in mind, this panel is quite soft, as I say, so I'm expecting it might remove a fair amount. So we've got 131 here, and we'll take one more measurement just here, close to 8 centimeters as I can be. And it's slightly thinner there, it's showing 124. Okay, so in terms of the machine polisher, as I say, I'm going to stick to using the DAS6 Pro Plus just for consistency of results in all the videos. And as you can see, I've got the 3-inch backing plate on here. You've got your interface, which I showed you earlier, and then you've got your sanding pad on the top. So those two combined give you a lot of cushioning and a lot of free play, which means when you go over contours, it generally adapts to all the contours very nicely. So we'll just set up and we'll start the machine polishing process. So we've got the 1500 grit Rupes XCut pad, and the reason it's called damp sanding is that you just need a little bit of water. You just spray a little bit on the pad itself as well, and we're pretty much good to go. So we're going to go on level 3. Now these areas are quite small. I'm not sure how it shows up on the video, but they are quite small sections, so it might seem like I'm doing it quite quickly, but you need to be as least aggressive as possible just to try and get rid of the defects, and I'll show you that now. Okay, so you can see how it's gone all hazy, and that is basically the clear coat that's been removed from the surface of the actual panel itself. So we'll just give this a quick wipe down using some Gyeon Prep. And that haziness is basically what you should want to see. You get that hazy, sanded panel, which shows that you've actually removed some of the clear coat. So, I'm not sure if you can see, but you can still see the water etching, so that's obviously gone quite deep. And from what I can see here, looking under the light, it looks like most of the scratches here are gone because they were not as deep as the water etching. However, if you tried to compound that, you would have been compounding that quite a few times to get rid of the scratches, whereas it looks like the scratches have now been removed just with that one set of passes from the 1500 grit sandpaper. However, this will require a bit more sanding, but before we do that, obviously we want to detail responsibly. We're just going to take a measurement first to see how much clear coat has been removed by that set of passes. And this set, I think we're kind of done now. We could go on to compounding or polishing, but I'll talk about that in a second. So we'll just go ahead, take some measurements, and then we'll see if we can just hit that one more time, but we'll see how much clear coat we've removed first. So I'll try and be as accurate as possible by taking measurements in exactly the same spot, which was at 8 centimeters on the ruler. So now we're showing 128. So we've removed 8 microns according to the depth gauge. And will it be the same down here? Now this is soft lacquer, as I mentioned, so that doesn't really surprise me. So we're down to 124 here, so it's taken off quite a lot. So the clear coat is obviously a lot softer down this section here at the bottom. But we'll see at 8 centimeters how much it's removed here. So we're down to 125 over here. And that's the thing with soft lacquer, it can be quite inconsistent. Whereas with medium and hard lacquer, it generally removes the same amount everywhere. However, you still need to check. But on soft lacquer, this is now showing 120. So it's actually removing different amounts at different places. So what we'll do now, I'm just going to set the machine up, and we probably won't go over this section because we've removed quite a lot of clear coat already. But just to see how deep this has gone, we'll give that one more go and we'll see where we get to. Okay, so the pad is already wet from the previous go and also just cleaning it now, so I'll just add a little bit of water here and we'll give it one more go and we'll see how we get on. Again, milky solution as you would expect, that's the lacquer being removed, and it's actually destroyed some of the masking tape as well. So normally we wouldn't have masking tape, this is just for this demonstration. And this is just a test panel, so let's give it a wipe and see how much more is left. And we'll also see how much of the clear coat has been removed. So I don't know if you can see that, but that water etching is still there. It's gone really deep into the clear coat and it does feel smooth now. Before I could feel the ridges on top, but it's still there. So this would actually compromise the clear coat if we actually tried to attack that any further and try and remove it. And this is a part of responsible detailing, knowing when to stop, because you don't want to compromise the clear coat for the future. So what I'm going to do now is just take another measurement here and then we'll go on to the next phase of how we would now finish this off. So let's see how much clear coat we've removed. Again, I'll try and be as accurate as possible, go into 8 centimeters, and we'll see how much clear coat's been removed. On the last set of passes we removed 8 microns, and this time it's removed loads. It's removed, we're now down to 104. So we're getting to that stage now, as I say, where we're going to call it quits, because we're getting to that 100 mark, which means the paint is very thin and we don't want to compromise the clear coat. So on this test panel, I just wanted to see how much it would take to remove that. If this was an actual vehicle, I probably would not have done the second set of passes just to maintain the clear coat, because we removed 8 microns already. So I'm just going to talk about how we would now finish this off in the next step. So as I've mentioned already, when it comes to removing defects on your paint, whether it's compounding or polishing or finishing, in trying to remove as many scratches and imperfections as possible, you want to try and be as least aggressive and use the least steps as possible in achieving the finish you want. Now, normally, once you've sanded, these are 1500 grit sand marks, it would be tempting to go to something like a 3000 grit sandpaper to actually refine that further, step 2, then compound out the 3000 grit sanding marks, and then compound, polish, etc. But you're going through quite a few stages, and every stage, especially on a clear, soft clear coat like this, you're removing lacquer at every stage. So you want to use the least steps and be as least aggressive as possible. So the temptation would be to now even go in with a compounding microfiber pad like this one from Meguiars, or even if you use something like the Eurofiber 50/50 pad from Buff and Shine, using a really good compound such as heavy cut compound from Menzerna. However, because this is a soft panel, even if we use the microfiber pad with a compound, even if it's a really good compound which finishes down really well, I know we're still going to get hazing. So what we're going to do on this panel is, instead of using a compounding stage, what we're going to do is use a yellow Rupes fine polishing pad and use Sonax Perfect Finish, because on soft lacquer this step should now be enough to give us the finish that we might be looking for. And instead of going through multiple steps, compromising the clear coat further, from 1500 to using Perfect Finish in just 2 stages, we should be done, and we'll see what the results are now. Now, because the masking tape has been damaged, when you actually go over the masking tape with a pad or any kind of microfiber pad, it will pick up residue and could cause scratching. So what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to remove the actual masking tape, and we'll just finish out these sections and we'll see how they compare. So let me just set up and we'll see how we get on. Okay, so I changed my mind slightly. I've removed the damaged masking tape but left some of it on, because I think once we finish it'll be quite a good comparison to see how effective we've been with perfecting those sections against the rest of it. So hopefully it won't pick up too much residue. As I say, on a normal vehicle I wouldn't do this. This is just a test panel just for the purpose of this video, so let's see how we get on. So I've now got the yellow Rupes fine pad on the machine polisher, and as mentioned we're going to use the Sonax Perfect Finish. And we're not going to need much because it is a really small section we're doing, so 2 small drops like that will be enough. And as usual, I'm going to spread it on level 1 and then go to level 3.5 for the actual polishing itself. So I've done more passes than I usually would, but we are dealing with 1500 grit sanding marks. So let's just wipe away the residue. And we'll just hit it with some Gyeon Prep again, just to get rid of any oil, so get a bit more of a realistic finish. There you go. As you can see, the Sonax Perfect Finish was predominantly enough. There's still some scratches there. However, this is, I think that's actually from the Gyeon Prep itself. Let me just hit that one more time, because I think that's actually from the prep, not scratches on the panel. When it comes to these soft panels, literally just wiping it, even with a soft microfiber towel, can cause scratching. So you've got to be really careful and just use more product rather than going for heavier hand methods. But yeah, as you can see, Sonax Perfect Finish has finished it down quite nicely. There's still a few heavier scratches there, which if we compounded they would have come out. However, you would then go through 3 stages, so you're more than happy, you know, you're more than free to do that. But then you're removing more and more clear coat. That's the only thing to bear in mind. So as you can see on soft panel, as I said, Sonax Perfect Finish was enough to remove the 1500 grit sanding marks. And we'll do the same thing here just to show the results. So I've prepped the pad again, and again just a few more drops of Sonax Perfect Finish. We're not going to need much because again it's quite a small area. Should be enough. And again, spread on level 1, work on level 3.5. Okay, so once again we'll wipe off the polishing residue, and you can see that for the most part it's removed all of the 1500 grit sanding marks, and it's actually finished it down quite well, seeing as we've just polished it and not compounded it. Again, as I mentioned previously, you're more than able to compound it should you wish. Depends how perfect you want to get your panel. However, you can see, just for the purposes of this demonstration, that on soft clear lacquer, 1500 grit, sanding marks, perfect polish was more than enough to remove those sanding marks. And again, we'll probably see some deeper scratches on there, which this won't remove, and compounding would have. But again, as I say, I just wanted to demonstrate that you want to try and use the least amount of steps and least aggressive method possible to get the results you want. So I'm just going to remove the the masking tape, and we'll see exactly what results we've got. So the purpose of this video wasn't to show you absolute perfection, it was just to go through the steps of machine polishing, machine sanding, to get rid of some defects, to show you what to expect when you use the right sanding pads. Also, knowing when to stop, i.e. if we chase this further we would have compromised the clear coat, and also showing that just by using 1500 grit sanding pads with a perfect polish. We got rid of most of the defects. Again, this is not perfection. We could have gone with compounding and then finishing with a polish, and then we could have even gone with the third step of using the Rupes UltraFine pad with something like perfect polish from AngelWax to refine it even further. However, soft dark lacquer like this is an absolute nightmare to finish down, and as I say, we weren't looking for absolute perfection. We just wanted to go through the steps to show you 1500 grit marks, how they can be finished down in a few steps as possible to maintain soft clear lacquer. So we hope you found this video useful. If you did, make sure you subscribe, make sure you press the bell icon to get alerts for future videos, make sure you follow us on Instagram, and make sure you like this video. We'll see you on the next one. Thanks for watching.